The first shock wasn't the money. It was the silence. After the press conferences, the lawyers' offices, the suffocating weight of congratulations from people I hadn't spoken to in years, I finally arrived. My electric car, a spaceship in this terrain, bumped down the final dirt track toward what the Floyd real estate listing had called Whispering Pines Ranch. The engine's hum died, and the quiet rushed in. It wasn't an absence of sound. It was a presence, a heavy, textured blanket of it, woven from the sigh of wind through endless sagebrush, the distant cry of a hawk, and something deeper, the hum of the earth itself. I stepped out, the Oregon high desert air, thin and sharp, filling my lungs. Before me stood my $2.4 million purchase. The farmhouse was a proud old thing, but time had beaten its pride into a weary slump. Its white paint was a memory, leaving silvered wood bones exposed. The porch roof curved like a tired spine. Beyond it, a rusted windmill stood frozen in a final, desperate rotation. And the silence, it pressed against my eardrums. My phone buzzed, a violent intrusion. It was Mike, my old college roommate, currently on a yacht he'd rented in the Mediterranean, a lifestyle funded by enthusiastic but vague business proposals to me. Leo, my man, tell me you've come to your senses. I'm in Nice. The water is asterisk. Unreal asterisk. When's your flight? I stared at the crumbling house. I'm at the farm, Mike. A pause, filled with the clink of glasses and laughter in the background. Right. The cowboy fantasy. Leo, you could buy an island. You could buy this island. Why are you standing in what I can only assume is dirt? Why not? I said, the defensiveness automatic. It's quiet. It's a graveyard with a view, he sighed. All right. You're a crisis. Call me when you get bored. I hung up. The silence felt louder. A wave of pure dizzying doubt washed over me. What had I done? I was a graphic designer from Cleveland. I knew Pantone codes, not whatever this was. The key from the realtor felt cold in my hand. The front door resisted with a groan that seemed to come from the earth, not the hinges. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of dust, dry rot, and forgotten years. Sunlight, thick with motes, cut through cracks in the boarded-up windows. My footsteps echoed on hardwood floors scarred by a century of living. In the kitchen, an old calendar hung, frozen on October 1987. A coffee mug sat in the sink, stained a permanent brown. This wasn't a fresh start. It was an archaeological dig into someone else's abandoned life. That first night, sleeping on a camping cot in the empty living room, the silence was so profound I could hear the blood rushing in my own ears. I'd traded the cacophony of sudden wealth for a different kind of screaming quiet. Juniper Gap wasn't a town. It was an outpost, a single street of false-fronted buildings clinging to the desert. The mercantile was its beating heart. A bell jangled above the door, and I stepped into a dim, crowded space that seemed to hold the history of the county. The air was a mix of coffee, fertilizer, leather, and wood smoke. And there she was, behind a counter of scarred oak, sorting a box of mismatched nails. She had dark hair, streaked with gold, pulled back in a braid that fell over one shoulder. Her face was watchful, kind, etched with fine lines of the eyes from squinting into sun and wind. She looked up, and her eyes the color of the sage that dominated the hill swept over me, taking in my clean jeans and city pilar. "Help you?" she asked. Her voice was like the landscape outside, calm, clear, with an undercurrent of strength. "Yeah," I said, fumbling for my phone. "I need a sledgehammer, a pry bar, a book on well systems, and some other stuff." He felt absurd. A small, knowing smile touched her lips. "You must be the one who bought the clock place." "Does everyone know?" "Faster than the satellite internet," she said, coming out from behind the counter. She moved with an easy grace. "I'm Mara. My dad ran this store before me. Old man Clark used to buy his fencing nails right here." She led me down an aisle. "Sledgehammers are here. Get this one, the handle's hickory. It'll forgive a bad swing. She handed me the tool, its weight solid and serious in my hand. You planning on doing the work yourself? The contractors are slow. Good, she said simply. A place knows when you're willing to get your hands dirty. It remembers. She found the well pump book, its cover faded. The Clarks were good people. That house, it's got strong bones. Just needs someone to remember how to be a home again. Asterisk, remember? Asterisk, she used that word, too. Not renovate, not remodel. Asterisk, remember. Asterisk, I went back armed with tools. And that word, the first swing of the sledgehammer against a water-damaged kitchen wall was terrifying. Plaster and lath exploded in a cloud of ancient dust. But the second swing was cathartic. The third felt like progress. I swung until my shoulders burned, until the doubt was drowned out by physical exertion. I blistered my hands on the pry bar, yanking out rotten floorboards. I spent an entire afternoon under the sink, the well pump book propped open, trying to trace the ghost of a plumbing system. I ate cold beans from a can, sitting on the floor, covered in grime. And for the first time, I didn't feel like an imposter. I felt tired, and it was a good tired. My daily trips to the mercantile became a ritual. My questions evolved. Do you have a pipe wrench? Became, how do I tell if this joist is load-bearing? Became, what kind of wheat did they use to grow here? Mara's answers were never just transactional. They were stories. That's a bearing wall. See how the beams sit. My grandfather helped frame that addition in '58. Or hard red winter wheat. The soil's too alkaline for much else now. But the Clarks had a good stand for years. One hot afternoon, I was engaged in a losing war with a coiled spring of barbed wire. It had snagged my shirt, drawn a bloody line across my forearm, and generally embodied spite. I was sweating, swearing under my breath, when I heard the crunch of tires. Mara's dusty Ford pickup rolled to a stop. Gus, her border collie, bounded out first, trotting over to sniff my disaster. Mara followed, pulling on a pair of heavy, leather work gloves. Looks like the fence is putting up a fight, she observed, her eyes sparkling. It's winning, I grunted. Here's the thing, she said, kneeling beside me. Her shoulder brushed mine. You don't fight it. You work with it. This wire remembers being a fence. It wants to be straight. You just have to help it remember. She took the end from my hands. Her movements were economical, confident. She used a fence post for leverage, her hands strong, with faded scars and neat, short nails guiding the wire into submission. See, it's all in listening. I tried again, mimicking her motions. The wire still fought, but it yielded. Slowly, a section pulled taut, a straight, silver line against the brown earth. Hey! I breathed, a ridiculous surge of pride filling my chest. It worked. Her smile was, my son. Told you. The land remembers. That Saturday she showed up, not in passing, but with purpose. In the back of her truck were 2 shovels, a bag of lime, and a cardboard flat of tiny, green shoots. Asparagus crowns, she announced. They'll take 3 years to really produce, but they'll outlive both of us. The Clarks had a bed right over here. She led me to a sun-baked patch near the old well. We'll rebuild it. We spent the day breaking the hard-baked earth, mixing and lime-setting the strange, claw-like crowns into the soil. She taught me how to feel for the right depth, how to mound the soil just so. It was slow, silent work. Our movements fall into a rhythm. The sun beat down, sweat stung our eyes, and it was the best day I'd had in years. That was the turning point. The farm was no longer my solitary quixotic project. It became asterisk. Ours. Asterisk. The money from my old life paid for the new roof, the septic engineering, the photovoltaic panels. But Mara's knowledge patient, deep, and born of this specific place breathed life back into the bones. She taught me how to listen to the well pump. Hear that gurgle. That's air in the line. It's talking to you. She showed me how to identify cheatgrass from native bunch, how to saddle a horse that belonged to a neighbor she'd called in a favor from, how to plane a door so it would swing true without a sound. We spent weeks on the wide plank floors of the living room, on our hands and knees, sanding with the grain. As decades of grime and old varnish fell away, the honey-colored ponderosa pine emerged, each plank a unique map of knots and grain. "See?" she whispered, her hand next to mine on the warm wood. It was always beautiful. It was just waiting. We argued good-naturedly over paint colossal, favored earthy ochres and greens that would disappear into the landscape. I leaned toward crisp whites and blues. We compromised on a soft, buttery cream for the clapboard and a deep, barn red for the front door. We scrubbed the original glass of the windows until it sparkled, distorting the desert view in charming, wavy patterns. One evening, after we'd spent a back-breaking day wrestling the monstrous, restored Castillon stove into the kitchener, Vixiona Vixti celebrated with a single shared beer. We sat on the porch steps. The sky was doing its nightly miracle, bleeding from orange to violet to a deep indigo. Fireflies winked in the tall grass by the fence line we'd rebuilt. "You know," Myra said, her voice soft in the twilight, "when you first came into the store, the whole town was talking. Some tech millionaire, they said. Some lottery winner from back east. He'll play cowboy for a summer, then bail when he breaks a fingernail." I might have thought it too. I took a slow sip of beer, the bottle cool in my hand. "I am a lottery winner from back east." She nudged my shoulder with hers. The contact was electric and comforting all at once. "Maybe. But you're also the guy who spent 2 hours coaxing that barn cat out from under the porch with bits of tuna. The guy who gets up at dawn to water those asparagus crowns before the heat hits. The guy who tried to save that ridiculous rooster from the coyote." She looked at me, her gaze steady and sure in the gathering dark. "You're not just spending, you're staying." Her words found a hollow place in me and filled it. "The money," I said, the truth spilling out. "Out here, it doesn't feel like mine. It feels like the farm's. Like it was just a key to unlock this door. And this." I gestured between us, the space humming. "This has nothing to do with any of that. This feels earned." Our love didn't arrive with fanfare. It grew. It grew in the quiet companionship of weeding the new vegetable garden she'd mapped out. It grew in the way she'd bring me a fresh thermos of coffee when she knew I'd be up on the roof ceiling flashing. It grew in the way I started helping her inventory the mercantile on Sunday evenings. My city boy spreadsheet skills, meeting her intuitive knowledge of what the community needed. It grew in the laughter that echoed in the empty barn as we planned a few dairy goats, maybe a flock of heritage turkeys. Definitely more fruit trees. The farm came alive around us, not as a showpiece, but as a living, breathing entity. We raised chickens from dowled chicks, their cheeps filling the barn. The old windmill, with new sails I'd helped carve and fit, began to turn with a rhythmic asterisk creak dash swoosh asterisk, pumping cold, clear water into the new troughs. The first tentative spears of asparagus broke through the soil in the third spring, a promise fulfilled. The night we finally moved the last box of my things, a few pieces of my grandmother's china, my computer out of storage, and into the restored farmhouse, we didn't unpack. We spread a thick quilt in the meadow behind the house, the one with the best view of the unobstructed sky. We lay on our backs, Gus curled at our feet. Above us, the universe unveiled itself. The Milky Way was not a faint smudge, but a raging, brilliant river of diamonds, so bright it cast faint shadows. The silence was back, but it was different now. It wasn't empty. It was full of the rustle of grass, Gus's gentle snores, the distant call of an owl, the steady rhythm of morass breathing beside me. "I used to think winning was that jackpot," I said, my voice barely a whisper, afraid to disturb the cosmos. My hand found hers in the dark, our calluses fitting together like locked pieces. But this is the prize. Building something that feels real. Something that can't be bought, only made. Mara turned her head. In the starlight, her face was a study in silver and shadow, more beautiful than any constellation. She leaned over and kissed me, her lips warm against the cool night air. When she pulled back, her eyes were shining. "The clocks would be proud," she murmured. "You remembered it all. You remembered how to be home." En primera, Ade, in the relentless quiet of the desert, under the endless, watchful sky, I had remembered. I had traded a fortune for a foundation, and in the process, I had built a life and Found a love as solid and enduring as the old house itself. Its walls now strong enough, at last, to hold all the happiness in the world.